Belize made history yesterday when Section 53 of the Constitution was ordered to be amended by the Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin. The amendment will see Section 53 not applying to consenting sexual acts between adults of the same gender, as opposed to the penalty of 10 years in prison for persons engaging in carnal intercourse against the order of nature. The Caribbean Vulnerable Communities Coalition is an organization that works for Caribbean populations that are most vulnerable to HIV infection or that have been forgotten or neglected along the way when it comes to healthcare programs. Dr. Caroline Gomez is that organization's director, who has told a Caribbean newspaper that she welcomes the ruling of the Belize Supreme Court regarding Section 53, and she believes that it will have positive implications for gay men in Belize and in the wider region. Dr. Gomez went on to say, and we quote, "We hope that this is the beginning of the overturning of these archaic, colonially imposed laws, which, as the judgment says, do damage to the dignity, rights and freedom of expression of the gay community around the region and all others." End of quote. With Belize's Chief Justice Kenneth Benjamin making history via his decision on the constitutionality of Section 53, one of the countries in the Caribbean that has been looking keenly at the judgment is Jamaica. On one hand, there is talk that the judgment in Belize will have legal implications for Jamaica, while others are saying otherwise. Bert Samuels is a prominent defense attorney in Jamaica, and according to him via an interview, he noted, and we quote, "Unlike a Privy Council decision which is binding, we can't say that it must be followed elsewhere. It is the first time in the Caribbean territory that any such sexual contact is deemed to be in breach of a person's constitutional rights." End of quote. Samuels went on to note via the Jamaican Gleaner that any potential impact from the ruling would have to be determined when the court hands down its written judgment. He also added that some consideration would have to be given to whether the law in Belize is the same as in Jamaica. There are some, according to the Gleaner, who have argued that the ruling has set a legal precedent and will influence common law. Meanwhile, the Canadian HIV/AIDS Legal Network has issued a statement in its territory declaring its hope that yesterday's ruling by the Supreme Court of Belize would persuade Jamaica to abandon its anti-buggery laws. The online article reads, and we quote, "The Canadian HIV/AIDS Legal Network has described the ruling as groundbreaking and potentially game-changing." It notes that 10 states in the Caribbean, including Jamaica, continue to cling to British colonially imposed anti-gay edicts. It argues that such outdated laws contribute to hate and violence against LGBTI people and exacerbate the HIV epidemic in the region. It says it is supporting the ongoing constitutional challenge of Jamaica's anti-buggery laws by Jamaican lawyer and rights activist Maurice Tomlinson. The network says although yesterday's ruling is not binding outside of Belize, it hopes it will be highly persuasive in Jamaica and other countries in the region. The Canadian HIV/AIDS Legal Network promotes the human rights of people living with and vulnerable to HIV/AIDS in Canada and internationally. End of quote. The LGBTIQI community won a major victory yesterday as the Chief Justice ruled to amend Section 53 of the Constitution to exclude consenting sex between adults in private. Now the community is expectant of the government's response to the ruling, which, according to Executive Director of UNIBAM, Caleb Orozco, will substantiate the ruling.
Nobody likes somebody to challenge status quo. In fact, it makes them insecure and bring fears and misunderstanding. And in their society, violence is used as a social mechanism to put you in your place. There will always be one crazy cow, one vindictive person who will use me as a scapegoat and take whatever issues they have out of me. And so I will have to continue to be conscious about where I walk, where I drive, who I hang out with, where I go in terms of entertainment. And for now, that I don't go out in Belize City. I and I alone have the personal burden of my security, as I cannot count on safe system to provide that security for me. That is a challenge when it comes to this kind of judgment.
I'd just like to make a statement that was sent to by Mrs. Kim Simplice Barrow, who is the Special Envoy for Women and Children, and where she said it was a great day for Belize, it's a great day for human rights, one step closer to dignity and the respect we all deserve. Okay?
While the LGBTQI community had not been very vocal in Belize until the last 5 years, making their sufferings oblivious to the larger population, Caleb Orozco spoke about some of the obstacles that the community has faced over the years.
The priority is a redress mechanism where immigration frontline officers must be more respectful toward people when they arrive at the airport and when they're applying for the immigration status. That's one. The second thing is there is a simple matter of you're living with your partner and the health system will treat you as if you're a pariah because, well, you're not blood and you are not allowed to make life or death decision of the person you're living with. I don't think our people deserve to be treated with the indignity of being shut out of the health concerns of their partner. That is unacceptable. When it comes to employment, our people have a basic aspiration to work, eat, and shelter just like everybody else. And in that regard, they must have the protection like every other citizen.
Orozco also touched the issue of hate speech and hate crimes against the community, stating that the population can no longer ignore that there are bias-motivated crimes against the community.
As to hate speech and crime, I've gotten my teeth knocked out. I've gotten my head was missed with a pint bottle with my next door neighbor. And all the court could tell me with that pint bottle missing my head was that I was not a victim. She could not acknowledge that there was hate in the act. There was no legal definition of hate. And while she found that person $200 for the crime of, I believe, threatening words and throwing a missile, the law does not acknowledge the fact that there are bias-motivated crimes.
According to Caleb, these reasons, among others, motivated the community to fight for their rights and challenge the law.